for being here. I think that it's enormously important to see you taking the first step. If this is in fact for you, then you're in the right place and you're going to learn all about it today. And it is my great pleasure to introduce you to the two gentlemen who will be speaking to their experiences in making the transition from military life into the world of film. So first of all, on my extreme right is Jim Twocrow.
Hi.
The lighting in this place would require glasses. So Jim Twocrow is a Lakota Army veteran who was born in South Dakota and was raised in New Mexico. He's an IATSE 480 member and for the last 9 years has been part of their executive. So he's going to be able to tell you a lot about the union. Jim has worked on the second season of Midnight Texas. He was a foreman for the entire Breaking Bad series, and he's worked for the Tremors pilot, the Mississippi Control Spare Parts, The Edge, and many other productions. Name a production company, and he's probably worked for it. So welcome, Jim. Thank you for being here. Let's give him a hand. And in the middle is Mike Miller. I know Mike from his position as a SAG-AFTRA board member until this last term. So it's nice to see him in another role now. Mike is, like myself, kind of a hyphenated movie guy. He is an actor for the stage, screen, radio, and television, and is a fourth-generation entertainer. I think I want to know what that is actually all about. And he has also worked in the film as an actor, director, producer, and cinematographer. His additional work includes broadcasting, podcasting, photography, large audience, MC, public speaking, music booking, and is a veteran of the Vietnam conflict. So let us welcome Michael. Thank you so much for being here.
The opportunity.
So first, I would like to define a couple of things in each of your bios here because maybe somebody would like to know. First of all, Mike, what is a fourth generation entertainer? Tell us just a sentence about that.
My mother, when she was 2 years old, danced in little minstrel shows with her grandfather.
Okay.
And then, of course, I came along and my sisters, some of them are still in entertainment in one way or another. My kids have been into theater and into film, and some of the grandkids now. And we have hopes for some of the 9 great-grandkids that we have at this point.
Wow, so there'll be 6 generations.
6 generations. Christmas is coming.
Fantastic. And Jim, what I'd like you to define is, could you tell them what being a foreman means in the context of your work on Breaking Bad?
I was the first one there. I'd hire and fire everybody. That came on the construction set.
That came on the construction set. Okay, so we'll define it. You didn't actually hire or fire Bryan Cranston, for example.
No, that's above the line. That's
Exactly.
the talent. He drove the entire production, so we don't want to get rid of him.
You kept him around. Good move. So that's your first hint as to what we're talking about here. Above the line, below the line. If those terms didn't mean anything to you until 2 minutes ago, that's okay. But it's super important to know because above the line is Bryan Cranston. Below the line is the foreman that took care of the carpentry department. And below the line includes all of the different crew positions. So that is what we're here to talk about today. Okay, so first of all, gentlemen, could you tell me something about what made you interested in the film industry after you left the military? What brought you here? And how did that leap occur? Mike?
Mine is not really after the military. Mine is coming back after the military. My father was a frustrated filmmaker, so he made little 8mm movies, black and white, no sound, with kids in the neighborhood. And I was one of those kids, of course, so my first experience in acting was in some of these movies. Well, movie gets into your blood. You don't walk away from that very easily.
And of course, you would have been part of a draft. So the military kind of interrupted your life as opposed to drawing you in. Yes? No?
Yes, I was drafted. Wasn't happy about it, but I was drafted. And in retrospect, there are a lot of good things that came out of it, so I can't complain anymore.
Okay. All in the past. And Jim, what drew you to the movie industry?
It was a convoluted path. I got out of the first Gulf War and sitting in a bar here in town, and an extra said, "Hey, they're hiring." It was a movie called The Ford Ranch now, out by Galisteo. So I went out there and got hired on for a movie called Wyatt Earp. That was a year-long project of 6-day a week, 12-hour days. So after that production, I stopped doing that. Became just a regular carpenter. Around 2005, my brother said the union's opening up their doors, opening up their books, so I applied and got 30 days and became a union member and started building movie sets again.
Terrific. Now we have, as you can see, been joined by our third panelist. Welcome, Ryan. Always better late than never. I'm going to tell you a little about Ryan. Did I just say Brian? I meant Ryan. I totally meant Ryan. Ryan he served for 5 years in the U.S. Air Force as a space systems operator. Then he continued as a satellite systems engineer. He then enrolled in a production class at the Colorado Film School in Denver, Colorado, where he found his passion and love for filmmaking. He moved to northern New Mexico and completed his BFA in New Media from IAIA, Institute of American Indian Arts in Santa Fe. He's worked on numerous positions on many independent films, from brick to electric to boom op and second AC. And you might have to just define all of those terms for the audience at another moment. And he continues to write, direct, and act, as well as develop ideas for a stronger DNA Native American presence in film and television, both in front and behind the camera. Welcome, Ryan.
Thank you.
Now, the other two panelists have already answered the first question, which is, what drew you to the film industry? Why did that become an option after the military?
Is this one? Okay. It was definitely a bit of a long journey because I wasn't thinking about it. I wasn't. I was just continuing on with my engineering career, doing that, going for my bachelor's in engineering, and then it turned out, I took a couple of electives. They were free, and that kind of just changed my course. And after those two classes, and I made my first short film, everything kind of just shifted toward that. Everything that my career, all that stuff, it just kind of like everything was blocked. So then everything just opened up in the film world. So I came down here to Santa Fe, actually, to a film fest, and met a bunch of people, crew, actors, and I was like, well, I got to come down. I checked it out and moved to Espanola, to Velarde, and just met so many other great people working in the industry. It was like 2008, and so there was a bunch of new programs out there. The film crew training program was going on. So much stuff. It was just so much energy happening, and I just continued to write. I started getting into acting, but I always loved just being on set and wherever I could be at, really, and just be there. And for me, it's really about storytelling, being able to work on something that speaks to an audience and see and watch their reaction. Watch them interact with it, visually, emotionally. So that's great.
Thanks, Ryan. Okay, so you mentioned engineering, and you mentioned that you were doing your degree in engineering, and then you sort of got sideswiped. But what I'd love for the audience to hear is how the skills you used in the military were transferable to your work in the movie industry. Were there specific skills, or did you feel like you were starting over in a completely different vein? Let's go back to Jim there. Do you want to speak to that?
As an 11 Bravo grunt, there was really no applicable skills that transferred over.
That's fair.
The thing that did get me through was the ability to show up on time, consistently ask questions about what needed to get done, and figure things out on the go, because it is a very dynamic workplace as when you enter it. Things change daily, hourly. Sometimes the producer will throw away a whole set after you built it.
That makes me sad to hear you were 11B.
But no, if you can show up on time, have all the tools that they let you know that you're gonna need, have an open mind and just be willing to work, and don't take nothing personal, especially if you've built it by hand. They might come and say, get rid of that. All you can say is, okay, move on to the next one. So that was the easiest thing, was the ability to roll with the punches.
So I think everything you're describing, the audience can probably relate to in their various units. Would you say that it has that
I
in
would hope
common?
so.
Hopefully, yes.
While they're sitting here, that's
That's a very good
evidence
start.
that they did.
That's right. And Ryan, were there any skills that you used in engineering in the military that you would say still come in handy today?
Yeah, I was a 1-6. I was a space operator, so I kind of pretty much sat in a dark room like this. So it was, I did a lot of hardware, software testing. So I gravitated more towards the camera department, and since everything switched over to digital, it's basically a computer. So getting to learn the hardware and software, the cameras, that was, and then just providing some creativity. Was something that really helped me out. But also, being on time today.
We work hard today.
Rolling with it. The camaraderie is there. When you have when you're in your crew. It's everybody's working towards the same goal, and you definitely count on the other person next to you. So that's really great that I feel is there. That's what I remember.
Cool. Mike, your experience was a little while ago. Would you say that there's still something that you might pull from your experiences in Vietnam that serve you well in the movie industry today?
I think probably so. I was a 71R20. I did television news for AFVN.
There you go.
For the time I was there, and I produced a children's show. It was a spoof on the cartoon shows in America, and called The Worm and the Captain. They were stranded on a desert island, and then between their stories and the next story, we would play Flintstones movies or something of that nature. And we had, at one point, we thought we were making fun of American television when there was an orphanage there, Vietnamese children, that was run, I think, by the Catholic Church. They brought in a couple of children and said, can we come have a tour of the studio? Sure. What would that be for? Well, we have a whole set of children here who watch your cartoon show every Saturday morning. And we thought, we're not only supplying hometown memories for the people in the field, but we were also supporting children's education. Short time after that, we had a general's wife call us. We're like, what did we do now? Same request. There was a civilian contingency in Vietnam, and they brought their children with them. How they did that, I don't know, but they were also watching the television show every Saturday morning.
Wow.
So,
did you clean up your show a little bit after that?
yes. It was, after all, a general's wife who made the request. Yeah, we did. It wasn't particularly ragged or blue in the first place, but it was designed specifically that it could be watched by families, if you will.
And turns out it was.
And turns
Well,
out
that's
it
a
was.
direct application. Not all of our lives may be fitting in quite that cleanly, but that's great. It's a great story.
Well, that's only part of it.
Oh, I'm sure. We could go on. Ryan, can you talk a little about, first of all, you're part of 480. Are you part of the crew union? I know you're doing a lot of above and below the line.
Yeah, no, I haven't. I've been, every time I'm doing more work on the crew side, I get a role, and I start doing acting, and it kind of definitely pulls me away. But I do, on the independent side, I'm able to switch. I'm able to work on crew and then find someone that fills in. But it's a bit different, a bit harder to deal with on the 480 side or even the 600 side. Because I was going to go 600, but I also got cast in the same show, and they're like, no, we
Can you
can't do that.
tell the audience, just for those that aren't familiar, what's the difference between 480 and 600? What do the two unions do? I don't know, Jim, do you want to take that? Being on the executive for 480?
Well, I can speak for 480 side, it's all below the line craftsmen, craftspeople. I believe 600 is operators, camera operators, and that's a whole different contract, a whole different pay scale, pay rates, benefit package, and that's,
Right.
you know, along with the different craft comes different duties and such, and that's all I know about 600 is they show up, everybody in the movies, television, they work for the camera, that's what we say, we work for the camera, so if you're in 600, we work for you.
So you have to be aware that there are a variety of unions that are involved in this industry, and some people who are making a living without joining a union. So there are various paths, and Mike, I think you want to add to that.
I wanted to add to what Jim was saying. There's this funny sort of anomaly in that 600 also is the union for publicists. Now, let me explain what that means for just a minute. It means in order to get into 600, you have to have a certain number of working days as a camera crew of some sort, primarily as an operator. As a publicist, all you have to do is show that you were a publicist on a show. That's the easiest route in. I discovered that. I'm a cameraman. I've done still and video and film. Wanted to get into 600 at one point. It was like, haven't got enough hours on real shows. And then somebody told me about the publicist's angle. Since I've had a massive background in broadcast news, I thought, well, there we go. Never happened, but that's something. If you have that interest, there's a way into 600.
So a variety of paths. Let's talk a little about the path to get into 480, Jim.
Okay, IATSE Local 480. IATSE is an acronym standing for the International Association of Theatrical and Stage Employees. Our local chapter is 480. I've advocated for veterans, and we've got it down to where our standard enrollment procedure is you have to have 30 days being paid as a craftsman on a production, on a contracted production, and then you can come forward with your application. We've got it down for veterans, no 30 days, just come in and ask for a membership, and rather than the $800 initiation fee, a $100 administration fee. So here in New Mexico for IATSE Local 480, as a veteran, I believe it's one of the easiest avenues to get into a guild or a union with the film and TV industry.
I think it's incredible. It's absolutely amazing. If you go to the New Mexico website for 480, you'll see that there are 7 different paths, the last one being veterans, and it is by far the absolutely easiest way in. And I'm sure that we can thank Jim for that, being on the executive for the last 9 years, making sure that vets are taken care of. So all you have to do is ask and pay $100 instead of working for 30 days on somebody's set, which could be difficult to accomplish, to even just get on the set, and paying $800. So it's huge. So if it is your goal to become a below the crew member in, do you want to rattle off a few of the different departments that 480 covers?
Oh, geez.
Because there's so many. I'm going to miss some if I start.
We have about over 400 crafts covered.
There you go.
From
So
costumers, building the costumes, making the costumes, sewing the costume, painting the costume, dyeing the costume, aging the costume. That's just the
It's all different.
costumers. Then comes the painters, painting a set. You've got plasters, painters, drywallers, faux artists coming in. The guys who build a set, my department, construction, you build the sets, build the ceilings, build the floors, build the seats, all of that stuff. Build the giant sets if you want to. FX, special effects, those are the guys who will blow stuff up, create fires, create smoke, make it rain, make it snow, make it smoky, make it dusty. That's what the FX does. Crafty. Crafty is wonderful.
we all love crafty. Do we know what crafty is?
those
Shout
are
it out. What's crafty?
Food.
It is. It's the food.
There's two different types of food.
That's true.
There's food, and then it comes into catering, where you go sit down and they're going to give you a buffet style dinner or lunch. Crafty is snacks, cold sandwiches. It's an open little buffet table, and that'll save you when you're doing 12 to 14-hour days. Yeah.
And the contracts will stipulate what everybody has to get fed. You have to have a substantial at 10 a.m. or whatever.
That's on the production side.
True
There's
enough.
two different ways on a production. There's on production, which means the camera's there. 600's in the house and they're doing the filming. Off production means basically construction. The entire art department is on a location building a set. And then again, we would like to have crafty there, but the production, the contract might stipulate only during production days will crafty be there. So that means out here on location, you're fed for yourself. Bring your own crafty, bring your own lunch. But when you're on production, you're part of that crew. So they provide you with food, which is okay.
Well, I have to say, as an actor, I was always amazed when I would see crew members on X production, and then I wouldn't happen to see that crew member for another, let's say, 2 or 3 years on another production. I'm like, ooh, that person's really been enjoying crafty.
It is a treat.
It's true. Like, they really do feed you well. Anyway, so I mean, then it goes to hair and makeup, are part of our 480, and then you've got all the lighting, all the grips, and the electricians, and the sound department. There are so many jobs that go under 480. Basically, pretty much everything that's going to happen below the line, a lot of it, like the majority of it is 480. Then you've got the publicity and the camera, that's 600. And then you've got Teamsters that are doing the driving. So those are the three main unions that are involved. And then of course SAG-AFTRA is the above the line. It's the actors that are on camera. So there's an awful lot involved. And 480 at least has made it incredibly easy. Okay, so let's say you decide you want to do that, and you've picked a department, something that you've always been interested in, or something that you were doing in the military that's really applicable, whether it's an electrician or building skills or some other thing. So you get your membership, but then how are you actually going to get work? What's the next step? What do you have to do? Jim, take it too.
You have to have a phone. Literally. Nowadays, the phone is that's your agent for local 480. On your phone, you'll get what's known as a job blast. And it just says, this craft is needed this many days at this location, reply to this blast. And that's what we do in 480. That's a job blast. And you can pick and choose as the blasts come out. You're free to apply to any blast that is generated by a local 480, but that is the way you get a job. That is, I will say, the last way you want to get a job. IATSE Local 480 is what's known as a producer's list hiring hall. That means we just give the producer a list of names and the producer hires. But here in IATSE Local 480, we like to do what's known as networking. Constant contact with your contemporaries, your friends. You don't even have to like them, but you work well with them. He could be up in Pilar, you could be down in Corrales or something, say, hey, what's going on? You guys start talking. Oh, I hear this, a rumor. We love rumors. Call up buddy who might be on it. And next thing you know, you got 4 or 5 guys looking for a job. That's a little network going on. Job hits, hey, this guy's calling. I'll tell him about it. So if the foreman calls you up and says, I need 5 guys, I got 5 guys, here's their names and numbers. And that's how it works here in IATSE Local 480. It's word of mouth, it's through networking, and when that doesn't occur, that's when it becomes a job blast. That's when they say, oh, well, we didn't do it through word of mouth, and people who are preferred in this little, and it is a clique, it is a little tribe, if you must, a little unit that is cohesive and works well together. They'll bring in people once in a while to help them out. But if that doesn't work, then they still have positions to fill. They'll send out a job blast.
So what's the very first step? How are you going to get to be one of those people that's on that list and that preferred crew?
You show up on time with the tools, ask questions, and get the job done as quick as possible.
So getting onto the overflow list is a first step to that?
For these guys,
For these guys, what should they do?
you could, that is again an avenue to get on an overflow participant list that IATSE Local 40 has. It has a bunch of qualifications you'll need. Main one is residency. You've been here for 6 months, 6+ months. You have to have an ID that has a date on it that is 181 days older than the day you apply. That shows that you are a citizen of New Mexico, so you can partake of the rebates the state of New Mexico has put in place for the filming industry. So you meet all that criteria. You just go up and say, I want to become a member. Here's my DD 214 and here's my $100. They'll vet you. They'll say, well, you meet all its requirements, and they'll give you an application. So it's been a while since I went through that process. So I myself would say easiest way would be to just become a member. It would be quicker. You'd get your name out there faster, and you just start making phone calls.
Because once you are a member, once you paid your $100 and you've signed up, you would automatically become part of some list
Yes,
that producers would get.
you are now would be on the roster of 40, which is supplied to every production that comes into the state.
So then you want to start meeting people. And probably a good way to meet people is to gain a little experience on some independence. Would you agree? Ryan, you
I
want to
agree.
talk to that?
Yeah, definitely. Independents are wonderful. You get to, because you definitely get to work with people who may come over from the union who, let's say, are in key positions. So you're still learning. A lot of people are still learning. But someone who's an electrician in the union may come over on this other project who's the chief lighting tech. So he's just guiding everybody else on where to put the lights. And so you're just learning the terminology, you're learning the set etiquette, you're learning what things are. And then of course ask questions, and you're able to, let's say when there's the sound technician with all his gear, if you're looking to be going to sound, then you go and, ask him questions about what things are. Then that applies to, when you get on to being like the utility, then you can, that's just the first step, and you build up from there. So yeah, so independents are really fun. It's a bit all over the place because it's not so structured at times, and they ask a lot of you, and there's nothing that really keeps them from keeping you longer, or so it's just things to watch out that. But it's definitely a good learning place to understand things better, and also build your network.
And if they wanted to do that, if they wanted to go that route just to get some experience as they're signing up possibly for the union, how do they find out about independent projects? What's the steps that they take to get involved in that community?
But I mean, you can go and work on. You can go to NM Film, go to their crew calls. You know, people are always trying to do student projects, and a lot of times they're working with somebody who is in the union at times, or just local productions that are looking for crew people, and you just go and see who's needing crew. Again, just go to networking, go to film festivals, go to these events, and NM Films definitely a great resource. IATSE, and then a lot of people do multiple things, so you never know who you're really gonna run into just by talking to them.
Rule of thumb: be nice to everyone. Always. You never know. So the independents also offer you an opportunity to do something that you might not be ready to do on a big IATSE shoot. For example, when I was making films, my cinematographer was a camera op. So on the big shoots coming out of Hollywood, he was operating a camera. And he learned a lot doing that, but nobody was yet giving him the opportunity to be a cinematographer. Cinematographer is the guy who sets up the shots, who calls the shots, who tells the camera where to point. Along with the director. The director's got a vision, but the cinematographer's got a lot to say about how that's going to get shot and how that vision is going to be fulfilled through the camera lens. And so when you're working on an independent, you'll frequently be given more opportunities to expand your knowledge. When you're working on a big set, time is money, and you will have a very specific job, and you're not expected to go outside the lines of whatever job it is you've been hired for. So it's really hierarchical.
Mm-hmm.
Did I say that word?
Chain of command.
Chain of command. Chain of command is everything. You get that? So you really have to stay within your chain of command when you're part of a big crew. But when you're working on an independent, they're more interested in what your skills are than what your position's name is. And so you're going to get a chance to really explore probably even other departments beside the one that you signed up for. And so that's why it becomes a good networking and learning experience as well. And Mike wants to add to that.
I'm an actor before I'm anything else. I've said that for a long time. But I'm also, due to an odd set of circumstances, a producer. When the Duke City Shootout started, because I have some experience producing theater, I was asked to produce one of the movies. From that point on, I ended up producing or advising the productions, short ones, and then the 48-hour films that were made. And then I walk on a set as an actor, and there are guys who worked with me on those smaller films, now in key positions, some of them, because they learned on an independent set enough to move up far enough that they could qualify for 480. More importantly, I always have 480 people on a set in some capacities. If they're between shows, yeah, they'll come work, they'll play. Well, that's an excellent way to learn what that particular job is. So find an independent film that's student films, the other. There are so many independent films going on right now that you should be able to walk out that front door and find one. Well, all right, maybe that's an exaggeration.
Well, it's pretty much that easy. If you go to the New Mexico Film website and just look at crew calls, you're going to find all kinds of independents that really want you to come and help out. And even if you feel like you don't have a single skill to offer that's directly related to the movie industry, sign up anyway. You'll get on set, you'll do whatever they need done at that moment. That may not take a whole lot of skill, but you'll start to watch, you'll start to learn, and start to feel comfortable with what it's like to live on a movie set. It's a pretty interesting place. Independence, as Ryan was indicating, can be a little bit hit and miss in terms of how things get done or how efficiently they're run. All depends on who's in charge. But they're great learning experiences. and really prepare you for what it's like to be on a big set.
And you'll really be happy when you get to your 480 gigs with crafty catering. They don't run out.
Well, when I produced, I always fed everybody well. I thought if you can't pay them well, you can at least feed them. That was my philosophy. Okay. What other bits of advice can you give these people if they would like to make this their next career move? Is there anything that we haven't touched on, Mike?
I want to give a plug for the state, actually, for the film department, and for the various administrations who have installed the credits and different educational programs. If you have the time to go through one of those, that's a good place to start, because it will give you book knowledge of things that you are going to want to know. And if you walk up to somebody in 480 and says, "What can you do?" you start with, "I trained as this and this and this in the school," if you have time to do that. How many officers here? How many people were officers? I kind of suspected that. I was not an officer, but I had civilian training prior to going into the military, so from broadcasting it went all the way through. But because of the way I fell into producing, I did not go through the schools. I didn't have film school. What I had was seat of the pants learning is the way I did it. And discovered when the state of New Mexico put out the New Mexico Film Intensive in 2007 that there was a right way to do things and a wrong way to do things. That program is not now available, but there are some that are similar, both for above the line and for particularly below the line. Maybe Aaron can tell you what they are after we finish, because I'm not completely familiar with them. But if you have the time, do that first, seriously. People who were officers, gentlemen here, don't take the shortcut. Don't take the shortcut. Work your way up to, I don't know what your final goal is, producing or whatever it is, if it's above the line. Go through the system. Now, one of the people who are not covered, unless it's changed, and Jim can correct me, are PAs. PAs are production assistants. Holy smokes. Here's an advantage about PAs, though. PAs are needed on every single set. They are the lowest person on the totem pole, but they know more about everything going on that set than almost anybody else. Because the PAs go from department to department to department, and if they're smart, they're listening. You can learn a great deal by being a PA. So if you see an opportunity to do that, and you're not being hired and put on 480 yet, take the opportunity. It's an amazing learning experience. In addition, it puts you near the people who are making the decisions, and if you do exactly what Jim said, show up on time, do the job, put in a little extra. Show them that you're willing to take on extra responsibilities. You'll be noticed, and you will then move up.
Thank you for that. Training, so very important. And I wonder, Jim, can you speak a little more to that? Do you have any idea of what is available through, does IATSE have weekend workshops, for example, for people wanting to get into it?
Yes, we have a very good training program at this time for union members. So if nothing else, once you get your membership, you can start going to union membership training all weekend long. I mean, we've got grips, lighting, set deck, hair and makeup, construction, constantly running a rotation for lift operations such as scissor lifts, boom lifts, getting us guys so we can go up high and get things done. And if you don't find something as a member, if you don't find a class that's coming down the pipeline, you can request it saying, we'd like to have this type of training, and our training department will look into it and see what they can do to get back to you on getting that craft specific training to you so you can further your skill set and move up the line, bring in more films to our locations here. And that's what we're looking for, is to bolster our infrastructure as far as crew goes, so we cover all crafts. So when the production shows up, we've got everything they need.
Can you tell us how many crews, how many films could be manned at one time in New Mexico? Do you happen to know that number?
I think right now we can do, they said about, I'd like to say 7, but I think probably about 5 or 6 major motion pictures and 2 series.
It's a lot. That is a lot for one market to handle, and it really speaks to the strength and depth of the market in New Mexico. So it is really a sustainable career and a really good industry to get into. Would you like to add to that?
Is the production office part of production office jobs a part of 4082?
Production coordinator, yes.
How about like the accountants and those?
Accountants, yes, we cover those as well.
Yeah, so it's not just like on-set jobs.
I'm just curious, I don't know if you can speak to this, why PAs aren't covered. Is there a rationale?
You'd have to go to the contract negotiation with the AMPTP. There's no discernible craft for them except to run around and get coffee and take abuse.
They move all the paperwork around. There are also those lonely people you see standing all by themselves in the middle of nowhere, but they're securing a set. Some action will occur there later, so they're there.
Yes, they do get into every department. They're very relied upon for their job. And if you want to know what's going on, just go ask one. Because
They're usually
they all talk
happy to talk.
Yes, they talk to each other more than they'll talk to anybody else. The lowest level, they want to know where the next job is, who's the next job, where the next job is. So they have more of a pipeline into that than me as a 480 member. I don't know where the next job's coming from. I just wait for word of mouth. But those guys are, the PAs are actively pursuing the next job, which all 480 members do in some way or another. They're just looking for that next job. They got one, they're working on it, but they're constantly networking for the next gig.
That is one thing about this industry. If you get into it and you want to make a full-time life of it, it is kind of always looking for the next job. That is just part of the mindset you got to adapt. Because even though you might be fully employed at this moment, when that shoot ends, you want to get into another one. The nice thing is that you're paid well enough that you can take a break too from time to time.
Yes.
Mike, is there any other advice that you would give? Well, let's talk a little.
Do the job that you are asked to do it to the best of your ability, and add a little something. It's called value added in the retail world, but add a little value to what you're doing. Do it quicker, do it better. Don't volunteer to do something on a set that you are not asked to do. That's a dangerous situation.
It is. That's about, again, the chain of command and staying in your lane. You're going to be given very specific instructions for a very specific job. And within that job, you want to do your best and add value to whatever you're doing, but you do need to stay in your lane. People are pretty picky about that. And it comes down again to time is money. Everybody's got a lane, and it's very expensive to keep that set running, and everybody's got to be working at full capacity within their lane. If you start wandering into other lanes, you might be neglecting something in your own lane, or you might be stepping on the toes of somebody who's very proud of the job they're doing in that lane. So that is one thing to know about the industry as a whole. Less so on an independent set, I would think. Yes?
I'm sorry, say that?
Yeah, just staying in your lane is less important on an independent set.
It is, but it's still there.
It's still there.
It's still there because safety definitely is paramount. So you also have less hands. So people will ask you to help out here and there, maybe just move a tent, even though you're with the camera. But it's just a smaller crew, so you just have to kind of wear a couple of different hats. And then, but it all still applies, doing your job, doing the best you can, helping each other out, and enjoying it, because it's really a great time to be on set, being on a film, being on a project. It's wonderful when you're able to go and watch it in the end and see which we help create.
Thank you all for this. This is really, really valuable information. And as much as we have covered so many different aspects, I have a feeling there are probably specific questions out there. So, if anyone would like to ask a question of any one of our panelists, please do so. Yes, go ahead.
Are the Teamsters and ICG 600 also participating in Operation Soundstage?
The answer, I think, is Dolores, do you?
I do not know the answer to that, but I can find it for you.
I know that we've worked with them. I don't know if they're, when you say a part of it, but I think they've been sort of involved in helping us get the word out, like you did with Stagecoach about the events we're doing, so.
The Teamster jobs would be really
Yeah,
immediate.
yeah, I know we have been in touch with them, I just don't know to what level, but.
Cool.
Operation Soundstage. Maybe could you explain to everyone else what that is?
Well, so Operation Soundstage, which what we're all here for,
Yeah.
is the relationship with IATSE 480, that handshake, you know, the immediate transferability right into being a union member is a really special partnership. And so it would be groovy if the Teamsters and ICG 600 participated in the same.
Oh, that's what you mean. Yes, it certainly would be.
Just an interesting note, Teamsters are also the wranglers.
Oh, right. Yes, of course.
Yeah, so meaning like bugs to horses.
Right.
That's really
Anytime you see an animal on set, you're going to see a Teamster involved.
What about people?
Do they wrangle humans?
Yeah.
That's
That'd
the
be AD's job.
AD's job. Exactly.
They are people. Teamsters.
Yes, but they're not wrangling people. Yes, sir.
So I think this is for any hyphenated. You go 480, but you're also above the line, below the line. In the other markets, you really become just sound. That's all I do. When you start getting on the big productions, are they looking for that same thing? Because they're looking for you to develop your craft. But can you be on cleaning lady sound and then on duster construction? Or do you really need to start to focus on what you're doing? Does that make sense?
It does make sense. Do you want to take that one, Jim? What do
Yeah,
you
it's
think?
America, you can do whatever you want.
That's the big answer.
Okay, thank you.
Whoever wants to hire you for whatever job you want, that's the deal. I mean,
Okay.
It's gonna be on your start paperwork, your craft title,
Right.
especially with a contract position. They're gonna hire you and they're gonna tell you what it is, and it's gonna be right there on your start paperwork. So if they hire you to be a sound on one production, great. If they hire you to be construction on another, outstanding.
Okay.
And if you wanna go forward and get hired as a teamster on another production, you go that route, you can do that. There's nothing holding you back.
But do you see a lot of that in this market?
Not really, because once again, it is a close-knit
Mm-hmm.
little tribe of each department.
Right.
They call the people who they can work with consistently, with seamlessly, a few amount of hiccups as possible. So that's who they hire. And if, that's how it works.
Thank you.
So you do tend to specialize.
Mhm.
Other questions? Yes, sir.
Well, my name is Nick McKenzie. I'm a field rep for Senator Benray Lujan's office, and I'm also a Navy veteran, 20 years retired, Navy Seabee, and I had a couple questions. Does the DD-214, the character of service, does that impact a veteran's eligibility when applying for these programs? So, for example, a veteran has a dishonorable discharge or under honorable conditions, does that hold any weight on eligibility for any of these programs? That's the first question.
For 480, I don't believe it does.
If you look at the actual requirements for paperwork on the website for joining 480, it just says that you have to prove military service.
Wow.
That's how it's stated. Speaking of which, Jim was able to bring down some informational sheets. So there's some handouts in the lobby on the little table on how to join 480, if you'd like to pick one up.
Thank you. And the next question would be, as far as just generating awareness, within the industry, the union, there's the Teamsters, 480, 600. Does anyone go out to the transition classes? So most of us that were in, maybe some of us had the opportunity, that 1 week course where you're leaving the military. Is there any representation from these unions that go to those bases to say, hey, veterans or family members, this is another option for you instead of going, let's say, a traditional route, get out of the military, go to college or something like that?
Sounds like a great idea.
I have never been approached. That sounds like, an opportunity. But I will say this, as far as some feedback that I've gotten from other events that I've gone to, as far as veterans coming out of the service, is they're looking for that 9 to 5. They need that stability. They're not ready to go into this industry, this culture of gig work, where I am looking for that next one because this one's ending in, hey, it's gonna end tomorrow. It's a short, this gig's ending tomorrow. Where's my next gig? Where's my next gig? They're not, a lot of them aren't prepared to do that. They're not prepared to come out of retirement, you're 20-year vet, hey, I'm ready to kick it back, I'm not gonna start hunting a job every week, every 2 days. They're not ready to do that. So yeah, I'd love to go talk to some guys that coming straight out of, service, but I don't believe, from what I've experienced, they're not ready to come forward into this culture looking for work.
If I may, you're talking about two different parties involved in a process that two different parties have two different ideas about how it should work. This program that 480 has is specifically a 480 project. The people coming into the transition classes, it's a military or it's a government process. So you have to figure out a way those two would match. If the Congressman's office is concerned specifically about that one thing and how to take advantage of this particular program, then it would behoove them to advertise this to those transitional classes because they may not even be aware of it.
Great point. Have we got other questions? Yes.
So, hi, my name is Pablo Garcia. I was an Army veteran. Go Army. So, I guess I have a question about the 480 and 600 union. So, before I've been trying to get like a speaking role and just try to be more involved with the background work and stuff like that, just to try to get reps in, and stay busy as much as I can, like you guys said. Like you guys were talking about, it's sometimes piecework, maybe 2 days, 1 day, 3 days, or whatever it is. And then with the whole COVID thing, it was kind of, a little wild. But I'm trying to figure out ways to be more involved, whether it's being more involved with the production. So is it not a problem to be in a union and still pursue acting jobs? If you do one here for, the set, and then the other one is for trying to get acting roles or background work, is it not a conflict, or is it that's okay to do stuff like that?
Certainly not a conflict in terms of SAG-AFTRA, and I suspect not in terms of 480 or 600 either.
Okay.
Is that fair to say?
I've never seen, my only experience with that is one member, he had I brought him on because he was an actor. He came on and he was able to do high rigging work, and at the end of the season, he came on and said, "Thank you for bringing me on. I've made more money in this one season doing high rigging work than I did doing the entire season of doing in front of the camera work." So I was like, hey, it's no problem, but it's up to you as the individual to figure out which one you want to pursue.
Yeah, and I think that's been like the main thing for me is like, especially with background stuff, there's not a lot, it's more so just getting opportunity. I think getting in front of people, meeting people, like you guys said, it's networking with people that you've never really met before. So there's definitely been a lot of benefits in that, and a lot of people, but trying to figure out ways to stay consistent, stay busy. That's why I'm trying to, get more well-rounded, I guess, in the whole aspect when it comes to film.
I don't think there's anything wrong with that approach. I think that you'll know when the time is right and you'll feel when you're ready to commit to just one. We have a lot of SAG-AFTRA members who also do crew. As I think it was you that said, he'd made more money doing that one show than he probably made in 5 seasons of trying to be an actor. Because when you're an actor, you have to have a certain look. You don't know what that look is. You look what you look like, and you're either going to be right for that role or you're not. And there are probably 1,000 other people that could play that role, and some decision is going to be made. It's a real crapshoot. But when you're dealing with below the line, now you're talking about your skills and your work ethic. And you can get a job, and it really doesn't matter what you look like, because that's not what the emphasis is. So yes, you're going to have a much more consistent life. As much as you're always looking for the next gig, your opportunities for the next gig are way better below the line than they are for above the line. Way better.
Testify.
Yeah, oh yeah, we can all testify to that. As you know, I'm an actor, but I also work wardrobe for some projects, and that is, when you're an actor, that feels like a steady paycheck, even though it's going to end next week. And then as Ryan was saying that he hasn't joined the unions because it's like every time he's about to, he gets another acting gig. So when you can get that acting work, it's fabulous. I don't know, do you want to speak about the balance between working crew and acting?
It's definitely a balance. When you have, like a tight crew, like to say, like with the camera crew, it was a TV series, and they were going to bring me on as a second AC. But I got casted for that show, and I was going to be gone. I started as a series regular. I was going to start at the second week of production. And so I would have only worked for that first week and then been gone for the whole second week. And they're like, well, if we're gonna, that's too much. We're not gonna bring someone in for 1 week who's probably as an actual 600 AC, and then let them go to bring you back on as a second. So they're like, go do that, and then there's been more opportunities. So you definitely just have to kind of balance it out. I enjoy the sound department too. So if it doesn't interfere, if I'm just auditioning, I'll definitely jump on a crew. And because to do an audition, I'll if I'm, so let's say working up here somewhere, and there's a hotel, I'll just do the audition in my room. You don't need like a whole nother studio or a special space to do your audition. I'd say, but if it's between background where you're just kind of dabbling in it versus a crew spot, I'd say go crew, because you're still on set and you're still learning your craft.
And you're paid better, and probably treated better, and background doesn't lead to speaking roles nearly as often as people would like it to. It just generally is not the way it works. We all know one person who did background and was offered one line and is now a union and has got an agent. I mean, we all know those stories, right? You go, yeah, that could be me. But that's actually kind of a rare story. So yeah, if you want the regularity, you go for crew. It doesn't mean that you can't audition. You do have to, in fact, is there anybody else here that's thinking acting, that's also interested in hearing a little above the line? Well, just very briefly, you do have to be a little bit careful doing background if you are wanting to audition, if it is a TV series. If that camera sees you in the background, you have ruined your chances for auditioning for any role in the rest of that season and beyond. So if that series lasts 7 years, you're never going to get an audition for it because you did that one day of background. If it's a feature, you auditioned, didn't get cast, and now they're looking for background, go for it. It's a feature film, it's a one-off, it's not ruining anything. Do whatever you want. But do be very careful on those series.
Check with your agent first.
Absolutely. And if you don't have an agent, then use your best judgment. Decide, this is what I can afford to do. And there was a time in my life where I did some background, and I wasn't one of those, pick me, I wanna make sure the camera sees me, put me in the front row, I'm ready to go. I was the one that was sitting back here saying, you need 5 people for this scene? I think I read my book and you don't know what my face looks like and you probably don't want me. I'm just there, you know. Or if I am on camera, I'm making sure that I'm way in the back, just in case. Just in case there's some other opportunity that's gonna come up later in the season. You have to be really careful with the season work. Other questions? Seeing none, we're gonna bring
I
Aaron
got a
up.
question for these guys.
Oh, go ahead.
You wanna join this industry, that's great. We'd love to have you. But right now, at this moment, if you got a phone call, can you go do 6 days a week, 12-hour days, say in Albuquerque? That's what this is going to take. When you take a call, you gotta have an infrastructure. Your support network has to be able to support you going away 12 to 14 hours a day, 6 days a week, 7 days a week. That's the kind of commitment that this industry is gonna ask of you. So just to let you know, that's how this thing rolls. You're gonna get a phone call from the guy you've been networking with. Hey, I got a gig, but it's in Los Alamos, 3 months, 6 days a week. Can you do it? And you gotta know right then and there, not like, can I go ask my wife? You gotta be able to have your support network ready to roll. So that's a little
I'm
bit of
so glad you brought that up. I'm sorry for not saying it earlier. Thank you. So very important. It is a very demanding industry.
Don't jump sets. Don't do it. The word does get out and you won't work for very long. If you take a job, do the job.
finish.
Very important as well. Thank you, Mike. That's the kind of words of wisdom we need. You got any little bonbons that we should know about, Ryan?
If you're just starting out, yeah, definitely look at some training, look at, do some research on the job requirements, if it's technical, if it's just, because if you wanted to go into costumes, know a little bit about costumes and, what were ager, what do they do, or if you were supposed to go into sound, just be a boom op. What do you need for the boom op? Those type of things. A lot of things are just you have batteries, you got wires, you got all these little pieces. But if you just want to start out as a grip too, just moving C-stands and sandbags. If that's you kind of find where you want to sit at and play at, so it's great. Of course, there's a lot of downtime, so a lot of that hurry up and wait is still there. But it's it's all fun, and I can't exactly.
That's it. Say that out loud.
Said if it's not fun, don't do it.
Yeah, so do a little research, dabble, and then definitely you can go in and focus more and more.
You'll find out where you want to land. If you get your feet wet and you get on some independent sets, you'll soon find out if this is a good fit for you and where you want to go with it. Whether you're ready for 480 and the long hours and the commitment of that, or where you want to fit into this industry. There's so many different opportunities. It's not just one thing.